It's one thing to hear or read the balanced patch notes. It's a completely different thing to actually get to play them and see them side by side. Obviously, this is coming out during the time of season 5, so enjoy Gambit, y'all. Hopefully you get to auto lock them earlier. But there's a lot of stuff in here that I feel like you guys might miss. So I'm gonna show you guys the side by side comparisons because some of these are pretty big. For example, Hawkeye is now a brilliant counter to Jeff the Landshark. Prior to the buff, Jeff would just barely survive taking a headshot from him, and now Hawkeye can fully kill a Jeff when he's at maximum charge. This also, of course, means that he's dealing more damage generally, but that's a pretty big deal. Phoenix, this one's a lot more subtle. She has less damage drop-off, going from 60% to 75%. In other words, she's dealing 15% more damage past her maximum range, which is 30 meters. You're really not gonna feel this too much. This is just gonna be a mild increase to how effective she is, but it's a nice change. Mr. Fantastic, on the other hand, is getting a really big overhaul in a really good way. Reflexive Rubber, that's his Pop-Tart state, or his fridge mode, a lot of people call it different things, can now be popped even if he's in his big buff mode. This just means that he can be a lot more reactive to targets that are coming at him. It's worth noting that this will end your inflated state, so it's a bit of a trade-off. Also, in the inflated state, it's no longer 350 bonus health, the blue health when he enters it. Now it's just straight up maximum health, which is great because that means he can actually be used inside of like a Luna ult and keep his health up, whereas previously he would have lost some of that extra stuff that was added on top. Storm, her base increase in bonus damage, her Thunder mode, is going from 10% where it is right now to 12%, which is the previous patches, the season 4.5 patches, Goddess Boost mode. So in other words, she's by default going to be in Goddess Boost mode with respect to the previous season, and now Goddess Boost is getting a 15% increase up from that 12. So it's a big change. This means that some characters that previously would have just barely been shy of killing, such as Widow on, let's say, a 275 HP target, can now consistently make that happen. Great change. Squirrel Girl, this is just a revert of her previous nerf. The Burst Acorn, that's her primary fire, is going from 100 to 110. This is just a consistency thing. I know a lot of people hate Squirrel Girl, but let's be honest, she kind of sucks, and this I don't think a lot of people are going to feel. This is very mild. This makes her just a little bit better at chunking through the slightly chunkier targets. Spider-Man, Web Cluster Energy is now much faster. It's a pretty big and noticeable difference. You can see right here how much faster Spider-Man is getting those Web Cluster Energies back, and his amazing combo, his uppercut, is going from 60 to 70. This just means that he's a little bit more consistent and allows him to pretty consistently get through targets with his previous damage combos. Punisher, a pretty welcome change here. His base health is going from 275 to 300 to make up for his loss of his team-up anchor, and the Adjudicationist Assault Rifle is going from a maximum fall-off at 40 meters from 70% to 85%. Punisher is just a little bit more consistent. The bigger thing here is that his shotgun, the Deliverance, is going from 14 to 16. That's just free damage they're giving to him, which is a pretty big deal. Wolverine getting a buff is not on my bingo card, but here we are. His Savage Claws, just basic attack damage, is going from a increase per each rage point of 0.45% to 0.57%. This means that on chunkier targets, you are going to feel yourself chewing through them ever so slightly faster. His Vicious Rampage, that's his claws, that's his X slash, is going also as well from 0.45 to 0.57. So in general, Wolverine is getting a pretty noticeable buff, which is good because the tanks are getting scarier. We'll talk about that. His Feral Leap also is reverted to the previous cooldown from 15 back down to 12, so it's just a little bit more lethal. Keep an eye out for Wolverine tank players, he's gonna be good. Let's quickly jump into the Strategist here. Adam Warlock finally has a movement ability. I cannot believe this. Adam Warlock's Soul Flight, when he's eliminated and he has his passive, is going from 6 meters to double that at 12 meters per second. He can schmoove now. His ultimate cost is also just a little bit lower. You're really not going to feel this too much. It just means that Adam isn't completely locked into the back of the game, waiting for something to happen. The detection radius is also a little bit wider too. So, you know, nice, just all around good changes. Cloak and Dagger's base health is going from 250 to 275. That's just a footnote. Invisible Woman, on the other hand, getting a big change. Her orb projection hit damage is going from 25 to 30. So just free 5 points of damage per hit, and her maximum range is now up from 30 to 35, and it's happening faster. This just means that Invisible Woman's base attack is a lot more valuable to her and a lot more lethal to enemies. Her force physics lengths also are getting the same thing, so that's the push and pull. It's the same exact range that you're going to see with the primary fire. Her Guardian Shield now, this is a big one. Guardian Shield can now be placed on herself if there are no targets locked on. So basically, if Invisible Woman for whatever reason gets separated out from her team or really needs to heal herself up, she can just do that now with her shield, whereas previously she had to hope for an ally to walk nearby and then she could kind of like bum off her own healing shield. She could just do that herself now. So yeah, that's a really big change because that gives her so many more tools for taking care of people. Rocket's BRB cooldown is going from 45 seconds to 40 seconds. The more noticeable change here is that all of his projectiles are now moving much, much faster. You can see the side-by-side here. It's subtle, but you can feel it. It just means that he's going to be a lot more consistent at dealing with, let's say, airborne targets where he struggled in the past. And another one that was odd is the amount of repair mode shots, the little healing orbs, are going from 5 to 7. Literally never noticed this in the past, but again, this is just making him more consistent. Rocket is going to be a little bit better at taking care of the team now. Loki is getting a huge buff here. Loki was terrible in season 4.5, basically like not used outside of anything outside of his runes. He's actually being given something that's worthwhile. So again, a footnote, he's getting a base health increase, but his mystical missiles, that's just his basic primary fire, is getting a maximum damage increase from 50% to 80%. In other words, he's dealing 30% more damage in pretty much every single scenario. That's a huge change. And now he gets 10 extra points of healing to targets that he directly impacts. You can see the side by side. It's noticeable. This is a really big deal. Loki actually can heal targets now, and he does not need to rely on his regeneration rune. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about the tanks. Angela's charge is getting a slight increase in its speed from 16 meters per second to 18 meters per second. You're going to notice maybe 5 more meters total for her maximum charge. Just generally nice. It helps her out a little bit. Her ultimate ability, the health of the spear, is going from 600 to 800, which I do think you will feel because that's a pretty noticeable jump. It just means that her ult is going to be a little bit harder to deal with, and there's going to be a little bit more thought as to whether or not it's worth investing into. Penny is getting a huge buff. Her spider webs are now something that heals allies just like it heals her, and also grants them bonus movement speed. So this just means Penny is a pseudo support, and I would not be surprised if at the end of a game, Penny ends up having some of the higher heals in the game, especially if your healers are kind of lacking. It's a really big change. Penny's going to be a little bit scary. Magneto, another really good change. He has separate cooldowns between his shared shield and his personal shield, which just means he can have 2 shields out on the field at any given time if he so wants. Now, he doesn't need to think about it, right? He can just like, I have the shield for myself, and then I can wait for my cloak and dagger to pop their ults to shield them. Like, it doesn't need to be a thought process. It's a big deal. Both the shared and personal shields, health is going down 50 points. Again, I don't really feel like you're really gonna notice this. So time will tell. Captain America's ultimate ability now gives a 30% ultimate energy to charge efficiency. So in other words, everything that you're doing while Cap's ult is active is now just 30% extra. You can see the side by side here of Punisher with like a full magazine against Venom, landing mostly headshots. The amount of energy that he gets is like 10 whole percent with 1 magazine and good accuracy, right? That's a big deal. That's a lot of energy. Groot, I've been talking about some big changes. This is another one. Groot used to be hard countered by Wolverine. It's a little less so now. Groot's Iron Wall now gives him the unstoppable status effect while it awakens, and he's within 15 meters of it. In other words, if he's getting bonus health or his allies are dealing damage where his Iron Wall is, now he cannot be stunned, making Groot extremely consistent at staying present on the field and keeping his team alive. This is going to massively overhaul how Groot is looked at in the game, I guarantee it. Hulk, I feel like this one is a little bit more subtle. His Gamma Burst, his ranged attack, reduces the cooldown of his overshield, his bubble, by 1 second. This does pierce targets just like Magic's change, so this means that if he hits multiple targets, he gets multiple seconds cut off. a good change, more of a skilled expression for Hulk, but not the craziest thing overall. I think this just means that in most cases, the indestructible guard is going to be reduced by a second. The Thing, practically a complete overhaul of the character. In Battled Leap, that's the one that he would jump to an ally, no longer just applies damage reduction between him and the target that he hit. Now it's just 20% of a damage reduction, down from 25% to anybody within a 5-meter radius, which means very consistently he can land this on his entire team and let them go to town. Very big deal. And for his Battle Blitz, that's the one where he leaps to an enemy. This no longer applies damage reduction to the Thing as he leaps in. Instead, it applies a vulnerability of 20% to the target and anyone within a 5-meter radius that he landed on. The Thing just became a huge damage enabler. The Thing might be really scary come this next season. Stone Haymaker got a pretty much an overwork here, just a complete overhaul. Its damage went from 90 to 55, which is just about half, and he no longer gets the 50 bonus health just for using it. Instead, every time he deals damage with it, he deals 8% of the target's maximum health, meaning that he is much better at dealing with tanks, which is scary. But also, every target he hits equal to the damage he dealt gives him bonus health up to a maximum of 100. Again, this is just a skill expression thing. I really do think that the Thing might be one of the better tanks coming into this next season, because that vulnerability by itself is a really big deal. Let's cap this all off by talking about some of the new team-ups. The Blade of Khonshu is frighteningly good, giving Blade the ability to deal about half of this Venom's health with just the ability's activation. It does have a long cooldown period, so, you know, a little understandable, but this is a lot of damage, making Blade and Moon Knight together a very scary thing. Moon Knight also is getting a small boost in his damage. Again, I don't feel like you're going to notice this in most cases outside of already getting some help. The bigger team ups here are Explosive Entanglement with Gambit and Magneto. This gives the Magneto a massive change to his primary fire, similar to how the Magneto and Wanda team up was back all the way in season 1. This deals a large portion of damage, as you can see how this is damaging the Venom here, and it lasts a pretty good time, but just the same, it also has a really long cooldown, so you have to be careful with it. The Sword of Duality is the new one that is being added between Cloak and Dagger and Hawkeye, and Hawkeye can now heal allies. It's 60 health. This basically operates like Cloak and Dagger's Veil, both of their Veils, in just a slash format. The difference is it has infinite range. It does make Hawkeye very scary because that vulnerability that he applies, again, similar to Cloak's vulnerability cape wave wall, can help him one-shot targets or get very close to it. What I think is going to be the most impactful team-up added to Marvel Rivals, and that's Primal Flames with Widow. Widow now has a healing ability, just toggleable. It has no cooldown. She can just turn it on whenever she wants. And with this active, she'll deal 75 healing per second to targets in a splash area. This also deals damage. It's less than her primary attack, although it fires much faster. This pretty much just makes Widow a viable choice, albeit as more of a support than she is as a DPS. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. It makes Widow kind of good. I really do feel like they're trying to force Widow to actually have some place in the game. But let me know what you all think of these changes. A lot of these are a really big deal. Make sure that you're subscribed, as we'll be covering more stuff of season 5 as we're getting more time to experiment with it. Bless your faces and deuces.